Outdoors Our Way was invited by Texas Sporting Journal columnist Jeff Copeland to accompany him to Oak Creek Whitetail Ranch near Bland, Missouri. The opportunity to film a hunt on this intensely managed whitetail property had us jumping at Jeff's invitation. Now, Jeff has taken game animals all over North America and Africa and has a wealth of bow hunting knowledge gleaned from years of hunting and evaluating outdoor products. Now it's off to Missouri in pursuit of a huge Oak Creek buck.
Our guide had been scouting a food plot that they've got, and he had seen this buck just about every day for the last 2 weeks in the evening. We had a little front blew through the afternoon that we were going out to hunt, and rained a little bit, cooled the temperature off, and our guide told us we needed to probably get out to the blind a little earlier than he ordinarily would when it was hot. We went out a couple hours earlier actually than he had been going out.
He's right there, but I think he's far enough down over this hill we can slip around this way and go ahead and get up over that field and over to the crest of that hill and get that blind.
We saw the buck we were looking for was chasing a doe, so we decided to slip around through the timber and hit another road that came up into this food plot and try to get out there early in case the buck and the doe came out. Well, as we're slipping through the timber and we get up to on the road and get to the edge of the food plot, we stopped and looked off, and this food plot is a really long plot. And down on the west end of it, there were 3 pretty nice bucks and a handful of does that had already beat us out there. And this was early, it was before 3 o'clock when we got out there. And so we sat there a minute scratching our heads and looking at the bucks, trying to see if maybe they were shooters potentially. And one of them was a real decent deer. So we decided we would sneak back the other way and come up the hill to where our blind was, hopefully obscured by the terrain from these deer that were on the west end of the plot. Well, the best laid plans of mice and men, we got about halfway up the hill and had a couple of yearling bucks come directly over the top of it towards us. So then our plan was shot, and we wound up boogering those young bucks out of there. And they, of course, snorted before they left, and then all the deer on the west end left. And so we were a little bit disheartened as we were crawling into the blind and getting situated up there. The only bit of optimism that we had was this buck's been there every evening for 2 weeks, and to our knowledge, we hadn't boogered him out of the area because he was still quite a ways down the hill from where we wound up going in.
Oak Creek's management program is probably totally different than anything that anybody's ever seen. We're able to do some things that a lot of people aren't. You hear that if they're at 8 point, we shoot them. If they're a spike, we shoot them. Our management program changes every year, and it's just right on the cutting edge, trying to keep that biggest buck that we could probably ever produce and try to stay ahead of the game producing that big buck. How we do that is lots of food plots, lots of food. They've got to have the food. If a deer's not fat going into winter, it's not going to grow horns the next summer. If a deer's not fat going into summer, it's not going to grow horns. You got to keep them fat. I like to keep an inch, 2 inches of fat on their back, and they're going to be good, healthy deer. As far as the genetics, it's changing daily. We try for big, solid typicals, a lot of mass. I really like the mass, I like the width, I like the time length. How we do that is several different folds, you know, and like I said, it changes daily. It's not a yearly change. We are constantly trying to produce the biggest deer. I've got deer, you know, that naturally breed out in the wild. How we do that is we knock those 2 and 3 year olds out before, if they're not something that we want breeding, we will get them out of the herd. You know, and that's unheard of in most places. You know, if you're shooting a 2 and 3 year old deer, you know, usually it's a spike or an 8 point or something like that. Doesn't matter if it's an 8 point, doesn't matter if it's a 12 point. If it's not 130, 140 inches by the time it's 2 years old, we want it out of that herd. We don't want it breeding. When they hit 3 year old, they're going to breed. They're going to be active. 4 year olds are real active. So by the time they're 4, we definitely don't want them in the herd if they're not a big deer, 200-inch deer that's really keeping the genetics going. You know, yes, we've got a lot of non-typical stuff. I think we put 5 of the top 10 non-typicals in the book last year, but we put 7 of the top 10 typicals in the book, and I like typicals. People ask me all the time, what is the secret to growing a big buck? Change up your management. Every year it's got to get better. It's got to get stricter. And you've got to have a bunch of guys in there shooting a lot of doe and taking care of it. Every minute it changes.
We had some deer and turkeys came back into the west end of the plot, which was behind us, and sat there for quite a while watching those. And finally, about 6 o'clock, about the time the guide had been seeing this buck in the plot every day, we looked down to the south out of one of the windows in the blind and saw a big white set of horns coming up over the hill through the dark timber. And I think all of our hearts skipped a beat at that point in time. And then the buck proceeded to torture us by walking back and forth through that opening where he was under the oak trees eating acorns instead of coming on out into the plot. And we did get a chance to glass him a little bit and determine that it was the deer that we were looking for, and the same deer that we had seen when we got out of the truck chasing the doe. And then he put us through a torturous 45 minutes of taking his sweet time feeding up through the edge of the food plot to get up into position where we could get a shot at him with a bow.
Well, fans, the officials are converging at midfield right now to make the decision. Let's see, I personally don't see how this game can continue. And that's it, they've called it. I haven't seen a storm like this since
Stormcloth, when it's more than a game.
And he finally got within range, and the guide was sitting behind us in the blind. He had a range finder, and he was giving me periodic updates on the range, and the cameraman could see out 2 windows, but obviously since I'm on the other side of the blind, it was 2 different directions than I could see. So it was pretty nerve-wracking. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions, because he would be getting close to where I could get a shot at him, and then the camera would say, no, wait a minute, he's behind a tree from me. And then the cameraman would say, well, I've got him clear now, and my heart would race again, and I would look and I would be blocked or obstructed by something, couldn't get a shot at him.
We do a lot of stand hunting over food plots. We'll do some stand hunting in the acorns. Whenever the acorns are falling, we'll get back in those deep woods and those acorn flats, and we'll do some hunting. Here at Oak Creek, we cater our hunt to you. As long as the deer are cooperating, we try to cater it to how you like to hunt. A lot of people don't like sitting in a stand.
Some hunters may have physical abilities that limit them on how they can hunt. We have several different options that you can choose from. We have stands that we set over food plots, and that's the traditional hunting style that we normally do. We do some spotting and stalking, and we also offer a rattling program. We have roughly 150 acres worth of food plots out here, and our stands are luxurious stands. They're comfortable, they're warm, so whether you're old and can't stand the cold, or whether you're young and can't stand the cold, they're nice and comfortable.
Why should we dictate what you do? If you don't want to sit in a stand, we're not going to make you sit in a stand. You know, now, granted, we're going to get you that deer, so if it's not a time to spot and stalk or rattle, you know, you got to trust your guide a little bit, and let's go harvest the deer.
Finally, about 10 till 7, The buck finally settled in one of the few creases we had where the camera could see him and I could get a clean shot at him. And we're losing light fast, and we were worried that we were going to run out of video time before he stopped, but finally he stopped and looked away, and I was able to get drawn. And the guide whispered the yardage in my ear, and I settled the pin on his chest, and got lucky, made a good shot on him, and he barreled off the side of the hill and wound up. He didn't make it out of the food plot. He went about 50 yards and piled up right on the edge of the road. We were able to drive right up to him and load him up. That's the way we like it to go down.
Try to get it.
He tried to come on out, didn't he? Yeah.
That is an awesome.
Got one little sticker right there on the front.
Yeah.
Other than that, he's as clean as he's gonna get.
Big, heavy, gnarly bases and carries some mass out.
He got huge beams.
And even though we're in a wide open food plot in a little mott of persimmon trees, and this buck was within 35, 40 yards of us for 40 minutes or so, it took us that long before I could see him and the cameraman could see him at the same time, and we were able to get a shot on him.
This buck put Jeff and our cameras to the test, but cool heads and a steady aim put Jeff in position to harvest this Missouri monster with a dead-on shot and a memory that will last a lifetime.